In the wide flat plains of Western Melbourne sits Dame Phyllis Frost Centre, Victoria's only female maximum security prison. It's here that Erin Patterson was driven back to after her guilty verdict. To discuss what her life will be like behind bars, I'm joined by veteran crime reporter Anthony Dowsly. I'm Brooke Grebert-Craig, and this is The Mushroom Cook. Hi Dows, how are you going?
Well, in some ways, it's a relief that this has come to a conclusion. We know the verdict, as you've said on a previous podcast, and we can talk about everything that's happened since Monday, when Erin Patterson was found guilty of 3 murders and an attempted murder.
And right now we're in Herald Sun's podcast studio and we're looking at our front page on Tuesday. It's splashed with the headline "Cooked" and a photo of Erin looking quite shocked.
She's also looking a little bit struck by the idea of a flash in her face. It's an interesting story behind this photo that may be probably the photo that defines this trial and maybe this case in some ways. It was taken about 9 weeks ago. This photo was taken by Martin Keep, who's an AFP photographer, and he set up a special contraption on his camera to get the flash to be able to get through the prison van. He spent a long time planning for the photo, and it's been used by all media outlets. There was some conjecture around the ABC and whether they would use it or not, but it really is a defining moment of Erin Patterson as she faced the trial of her life.
And as we're talking about it, I'm sure our listeners can definitely picture the photo that we are talking about. In the Herald Sun's paper, we showed multiple stills of her. As I said earlier, she's looking quite shocked. You can see her moving her hand up to her face, closing her eyes quite tightly. And you can definitely tell that she wasn't expecting this photo to be taken in that moment. For weeks, photographers were trying to get the shot of Erin. They had 2 chances each week.
Yeah, the chances are being taken from Dame Phyllis Frost Centre on her way to the Morwell courts. And then at the end of the week, when she was going back to Dame Phyllis Frost Centre, she'd been in custody since November 2023, and she was being brought to court and away from court every weekend, every week. So that was the chances they had. They didn't have many.
Erin caught on after this particular photo was taken, and she ended up lying on the ground of the prison van to shield her face from the cameras. So she got quite smart in the tactics that she would do to avoid the cameras, really.
Yeah, and given Erin's personality, I think, kind of the public notoriety surrounding her, we don't know how she feels about it, but even when she was in court and a sketch artist would try and, take a sketch of her while she sat in the dock, she would shield away from that. So it was clear that she did not want to be photographed or have her image taken anymore. It's interesting, as this was taken quite a number of weeks ago, it was most likely inside this prison van that she was taken back on Monday to Dame Phyllis Frost Centre, where she is going to be sentenced to stay probably for the rest of her life. We don't know when the sentencing is going to happen. There's a plea hearing that will happen before it. That's in the weeks and maybe months ahead. But she now has to come to that realisation that she's a convicted murderer and her life will never be the same.
So Dame Phyllis Frost is a women's maximum security prison that's located in Melbourne's west. Some of the most notorious female prisoners are in there, for example, like Mel Khalifa. Who else, Dows?
Robin Lindholm, who's known as the Black Widow. She's convicted of killing 2 men, both of them being partners of hers, and she's suspected of killing a woman as well.
And you've also mentioned to me about Judy Moran.
Judy Moran, a gangland figure, the mother of Jason and Mark Moran, and she's been in there for some time over the murder of her in-law, Des Moran. But Dame Phyllis Frost Centre has, according to reports, a maximum of almost 540 inmates. There's probably over 500 in there at any one time. And it's the only maximum security prison for women. And even though I don't know if it's as volatile as the men's prisons, there is volatility in there, and there's certainly a pecking order of who runs certain divisions within the prison. Now, there's no register of this, but I think that anyone who thinks that Erin Patterson is some sort of prison boss inmate inside Dame Phyllis Frost Centre would be sorely mistaken.
So what do you think then her life would be like in there?
Being high profile as a prisoner is not necessarily a good thing. It doesn't get you any benefits. In fact, it only makes you a target most of the time. So I think that's one of the reasons that she would be separated from other prisoners just at this moment, and that might go on for some time.
And they have access to the papers in prison?
Yeah, they can read papers. She would be someone on the tip of the tongue. She's in the mind of people, and having your name in the paper isn't necessarily a good thing for a prisoner. Most prisoners just want to lay low and do their time if you're smart. And you can ascend through the ranks through brutality, or you can do it through your personality. In Erin's case, I think that if she is to be put in contact with other prisoners, she's going to have to use her smarts. She's an intelligent person. We've heard that in court, and that's her main power, I think, in there.
So, Dows, you and I have reported on a complaint that Erin tampered with prison food.
Yeah, that was a complaint that came about last year. We don't know if that went anywhere. It seems like it didn't go anywhere. It might have been just a complaint in and of itself. And there's been other reports about this as well. But we know that she was put into an isolated area of the prison, and we think that's where she remains. And it may have to do with the fact that she is high profile, as we were talking about, that, you find yourself not only just in prison, but battling the prison politics, if that's the way we can term it, because, it's a bit of a jungle in there. And you've got to deal with other prisoners and how they want things to roll. They haven't got much to do with their time. It's pretty basic when you're in prison. Most people who have been to prison complain about the boredom, and Erin Patterson will be, in the weeks and months to come, feeling that boredom. She's been there for quite some time, since November of 2023, but now she doesn't have that trial to focus on. We've heard that she is setting herself for an appeal. That might take up some of her time, but really her main chance to fight this was at trial, and a jury didn't believe her. When she said that she didn't mean to kill these people, they did not believe her.
And as far as we know, Erin is the only triple murderer that's at Dame Phyllis Frost.
That's right. She is in rarefied air as a criminal. Again, that goes to her high profile. She's not only notorious Australia-wide, she's notorious around the world now. The story, as you know, has been reported in the Washington Post, New York Times, the Times in London. It's everywhere. We were doing interviews on Monday evening, and calls were coming in from everywhere, especially the UK. It was just one of those things that had a life of its own. And, we had a 12-page lift out in the Herald Sun. Our opponents had major coverage as well. This is one of those rare crime stories that come along every 5 to 10 years.
And that says a lot coming from someone like you, Dows, who has such experience in the industry as a veteran crime reporter.
It's not hard to define, because the ones that I've noticed that had a life of their own would be the trial of Adrian Bailey. There was enormous amount of public outrage about what happened to Jill Maher. That had a layer of systemic problems with the parole system, because Adrian Bailey should not have been free. Before that, there was the case of the death of Maria Korp. One woman went to jail on manslaughter, and her husband killed himself. But they are examples of stories that just go on and on and on. Erin Patterson has exposed what can happen in a rural town with a normal family when something extraordinary happens. And that thing that was extraordinary is that she decided to kill a family, her family, for reasons that we are not quite clear on yet. There's lots of reasons that have come up, but we haven't actually got the reason from her.
And we may never know.
We may never know. I mean, you and I talk about this. and we have slightly differing opinions sort of around the same areas about why she may have done this. But we both sort of agree that it's likely to be some form of revenge.
Yes, I think it's pretty fair to say that Erin did have a hatred towards her estranged husband, Simon, and that probably festered into a resentment for his parents. And really, Heather and Ian were collateral damage in her plan.
And if we accept that, it shows a kind of ruthlessness to have the capacity to kill people that aren't really involved in your life or your problems. Erin Patterson has said on numerous occasions that she, A, loved her family, B, that these people never did anything bad to her. And when we've sat and talked about this, and we have talked about that moment when she's served death cap mushrooms in a beef Wellington, as everyone knows, and she tells them that she has cancer, and then they pray for her. And I often wonder what she felt like in that moment.
And right now, what's probably going through her head at the moment is the process through the courts.
Yeah, so there's a few hearings to go. The first major one will be a plea hearing. And in that hearing, her barrister will be setting out mitigating circumstances surrounding her guilty plea. So why she doesn't deserve to go away, life is life. All the things that Erin Patterson has done in her life, how she held a job, she doesn't have any major convictions before this, all that kind of thing will come up. Once we're through the plea, then Justice Christopher Beale will be able to say, okay, now I'm going to sentence, and the sentencing hearing will be, at some point after that, probably a couple of weeks at least, and then he's going to determine a minimum and maximum term. The maximum she can get is life, and the very maximum she can get is life is life. Now, she's a convicted triple murderer with an attempted murder on top of that. It's going to have to be a prison stint, I would suggest, above 30, probably above 35, if she gets a minimum. I reckon she'll get a minimum. It'll be 35 and above.
So there's a high chance that Erin Patterson could die in prison?
Absolutely. Some prisoners are allowed out when they become so sick or infirm that, they're no danger to anyone. But, many prisoners do die in jail. If she does end up appealing, which we hear that she will, she has to lodge that within 28 days of her sentence. And there'll be a hearing to see whether that appeal has any grounds. And that could be the end of it.
Thanks, Dows. I'm sure we'll see you here back again.
See you then, Brooke.